Is that a new mask? I haven't seen it. What? The what fire? I don't know what you're on about. Oh hey. One, two, please, half. It's Wednesday. I'm in love. Hi, everybody. My name is Jimmy. I made a topical joke just now. How do you like them apples? I went to the comic shop today. You guys want to see what I got? Show you do. Picks of the week. Ba-da, ba-da, ba-da. Oh. I'm going to try and keep this short, not only for both of our sanities, but also because it takes forever to upload one of these stupid videos. And I got things to do and places to be ignored. So here we go. All right. First up this week, I got Decorum #1 by Jonathan Hickman and Mike Huddleston for the Image Comics Group. I'm very excited to have another Jonathan Hickman Image book, a science fiction book that he'll probably not finish, or not in any sort of timely manner. I don't know much about this book. It's very much on purpose. The elevator pitch is apparently it's a story about the most polite assassin in the universe. So I'm on board. But I'm on board anything Hickman does. His mainstream, his Marvel stuff is great, but, you know, he started as an indie guy, pretty much all of his stuff through Image. The Nightly News was his first thing, which if you haven't read that, he wrote and drew that, and it is, mwah. So yeah, but then unfortunately, as happens to a lot of more indie guys, a lot of these books went off schedule. Manhattan Projects was super delayed in the last volume. I don't know if The Dead and the Dying even ever finished. So there's a lot of stuff like that. It's still enjoyable. East of West finally made it to the end, so I don't see why we can't do another one. Plus, even though he is writing a bunch for Marvel again, at least he's still doing indie stuff as well. Mike Huddleston, I'm not actually that familiar with. I know his name, but as it turns out, I looked up his, body of work, and I'm not very familiar. He did a bunch of covers for recently for the House of X and Powers of X, which was written by Jonathan Hickman. I don't know if that collaboration came before this or the other way around. He also drew the covers for the Boom comic series from 2 years ago called King Kong on the Planet of the Apes, which was killer, as you might imagine. So this will be fun to read his interiors stuff. He did, he's not without credits. He did Marv Wolfman's last arc on Deathstroke in the mid-90s. And there was a Friday the 13th series by Wildstorm called Badland, which I did not read. It was one of the few Friday the 13th books I didn't read by Wildstorm. For whatever reason, Wildstorm got their hands on like those New Line Cinema characters. So it was Freddy, Jason, and Leatherface. And I only read the ones by writers that I liked, but they were really good. So I'm on to go back and read the other ones. So that's another one. Okay, good. That one's done. And what else did I get? I got Cable #1 by Jerry Duggan and Phil Noto. Look at little Cable. He's Kid Cable now. I'm kind of glad they didn't call it Kid Cable, although I kind of wish they had. I don't remember how exactly Cable became young again, but it does seem like they did that about a year ago, I want to say, and it does seem like they're going to keep him that way for a while, which is fine. I mean, we've had old, cynical, crusty Cable for the last 30 years. Why not have a young, cynical Cable for a while? This is written by Jerry Duggan, who I've talked about. He's a great writer, one of Marvel's guys, one of the tent poles that I was talking about before. And Phil Noto, I haven't actually read in a little while. I wasn't super familiar. Again, he's one of those guys whose names I knew, had always seen it around, but I wasn't super familiar with his work. He did do a few fill-in issues of Uncanny X-Force, which was mostly by Rick Remender. Rick Remender wrote all of them, and Jerome Opeña drew most of them, but Noto would come in to fill in for Opeña every now and again. It was a great book. But most recently, the book that I have read by Phil Noto was the very underrated Poe Dameron series for Marvel, for the Star Wars imprint. And even when I bought that, I started buying that book because it was by Charles Soule. Because I love Star Wars, but I'm not necessarily going to buy every single Star Wars book that comes out. I bought 2 Star Wars books this week. All right, so Poe Dameron, it was a character that I liked, but when that series started, it was right after Force Awakens, and Poe hadn't had much to do in that series. Last Jedi, and especially Rise of Skywalker, which is my favorite of the new ones. He had a lot more to do, and so I started buying the series when it started, I want to say in 2013, maybe 2014. And I kind of got bored, so I dropped it after a while. But then a couple years later, when I got the Marvel Unlimited app, I went back and started reading them, and I was like, oh man, this is really good. So, and Noto's work is amazing. The only thing, and this isn't a criticism, but this is more of a note, and this is something I've just noticed in modern comics in general, there's not a whole lot of plotting going on anymore. The way the panels are structured, that was very much a thing in the 70s especially, it seems. But even when I was a kid in the 80s, it was still, a lot of artists were really exploring what they could do, and panels, like splash pages with panels over them and all kinds of stuff like that. You don't see a lot of that anymore. Nowadays, all the panels are like this. And I know that because I read it on my tablet and I just turn it to landscape and read it that way, the whole panel by panel. And it's fine. It's just aesthetically, it's kind of, it's nothing to look at, which is why I didn't have any trouble not buying it in a hard copy. Good. 6 minutes in. Who cares? All right, so those are the only 2 picks of the week. Ba-da-ba-da-ba-da. And now we'll go to picks of last week. Ta-da! Actually, what I'm going to talk about now is not only the stuff I picked last week, but I was like 3 weeks behind. So aside from, like, the books that I'll pick, I'll read those first, and so I'll be able to talk about them the next week. But for the last 3 weeks, I hadn't been able to read any more than that. So I had 3 weeks worth of comics stacked up, and I finally got to read all of those this weekend. So I wanted to share those with you as well. But firstly, last week I bought Strange Academy #1, and this was really good. I can't remember who the goddamn artist is now. I mean, story-wise, it was great, but it was very much a first issue, like, oh, here's the world, and here are the characters, and here's everybody else. But the art was really good. I'll show you this really good splash page. That's a nice splash page. What? If you're not offended, I don't know what else. Oh, right, Humberto Ramos, who I didn't expect anything less from. And it was a very Scotty Young script, too. Like I think I said last week, Scotty Young tends to lean towards more of a younger audience, so him writing a school book really kind of makes sense. And then also I read Fantastic Four Grim Noir, #1 by Jerry Duggan and Ron Garney, who's an incredible artist. This was a few weeks old, actually, but I only just got it last week. And it's not, I thought it was going to be part of the whole Marvel Noir universe, which it isn't. Back about 10 years ago, Marvel started like an alternate universe type imprint line. The line never even had a name. It was just Noir. So it was X-Men Noir and Spider-Man Noir and Luke Cage Noir, which is probably the best. And it was fun. And then it was one of those things that they did and nobody really seemed to care about it. But then they put Spider-Man Noir in the 2018 film Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. That was 2018, right? Or 2019, maybe? I think it's 20. I don't remember. I'm on so many drugs. No, I'm kidding. So yeah, that's apparently regarnered interest in the noir universe, or at least into Spider-Man Noir. So that's what I assumed this was going to be. It was like, oh, we're going to start doing these again. But no, it was just a story that takes place in the modern day, and it was just in black and white-ish, sort of. Or it looked like, Sin City-ish type of thing. That's something, and I've been talking about this a lot, where I go like, well, I don't know why they're doing this one shot or why they're doing this. And now I'm starting to realize it's not like a tryout book. It's not like, oh, let's see if anybody gives a poop. It's really just, let's just crank out a bunch of comics, which Warren down at the shop complains about. Or, at the very least, he's not thrilled with the fact that as a shop owner, he has to order a bunch of stuff that's largely going to go unsold. When Marvel's putting out 100 books a month, there's no way even a diehard like me is not going to buy even half of that many, as much as I might like to. But even when I worked at a shop and I pretty much just got my comics for free, I never got every single Marvel title. Though I did get most of these one-shots. So I guess they're just trying to get while the getting's good. I can't say as I blame them. So what else did I read the other day? I read Ghostbusters Year 1, #2, which this one focuses on Dr. Ray Stantz, the heart of the Ghostbusters. This was a lot of fun, just like the one with Winston in the first issue. And it was they talked about the sponge migration. You get to see them as underclassmen at college when Ray and Egon and Peter all first meet. So that's always fun. Doctor Strange by Mark Waid has been tremendous as always. It's only 4 issues in on this run. But they brought Dr. Druid back. This is the sort of thing that I like about Mark Waid. He's really got a hankering for characters that you don't really see much, especially in Marvel, I think. I don't know how he does it in DC because I don't read a lot of his DC work. But Yeah, Dr. Druid was a minor Avenger in the late 80s, early 90s, who I don't think he's even appeared in a book since then. So now he's in Doctor Strange, and he's not a villain exactly, but he's not exactly likable. But it's been really good. If you've not been reading Doctor Strange, I highly recommend it. It's only on issue 4, so you can easily back those up. I also read a chunk of these last week. These are Just Imagine. Imagine. So this was a series that Stan Lee wrote, a series of one-shots, a series of prestige square-bound one-shots. So this is Stan Lee's Batman, this is Stan Lee's The Flash, this is Stan Lee's Green Lantern. They gave all these characters to Stan and said, how would you write these, Stan? And boy, did he Stan Lee them up. Those were all given to me by my friend, the funny and talented Newman Wolf, who I've mentioned before, because I think he just didn't want them anymore. And they're fun. I don't have all of them, and now I'm probably going to try to track the rest of them down. Because this was a book that I'd always was interested in, but not enough to actually do anything about it. But he works with different artists on each one, and some of them are better than others. Some of them are very, like Dick Giordano drew the Green Lantern one. Who drew the JLA one? Jerry Ordway draws the JLA. Oh no, this is Dave Gibbons doing the Green Lantern. I'm sorry. But yeah, Jerry Ordway drawing JLA. That's very much on brand. And it's not just Stan Lee writing it. It's Stan Lee from 1963 writing it. Like, he really turned it on. I mean, I'm sure they encouraged him to, and I'm sure they didn't take that much encouragement. And finally, my favorite thing that I read this week is something that I've read a gajillion times. But as you may have noticed, I've been living in this apartment for 2 years, and I only finally got all my books unpacked, which means I've rediscovered a lot of stuff that I even forgot I had. Now, this I had not forgotten that I had, but I've been wanting to dig it up, and I had no idea where it was. This is The Hulk and the Thing, The Big Change by Jim Starlin and Bernie Wrightson. This is a Marvel graphic novel. Marvel did a whole series of these. They were numbered at first, but I think this one's no longer numbered. And the first one was Alien Legion, which I do have. And I really like this format. I like this size. The art is, like, the paper was higher quality of the time. Like, when I was a kid, this sort of thing was $6. I mean, that's 6 times what I was paying for just regular comics. This is absolutely my favorite thing that either of these guys have done. Jim Starlin is the creator of Thanos and most of Marvel's cosmic stuff. Bernie Wrightson has drawn, I mean, he drew Swamp Thing. That was the main thing he was known for in comics. But for you normies out there, he drew the illustrations for Stephen King's The Stand, if I'm not very much mistaken, and a few other Stephen King-y things. I think the Creepshow book. So if you're a fan, you're probably familiar with Bernie through that. I don't think outside of that he's really known in the world, but he's highly respected artist in the comics industry. He's been dead for a couple of years, unfortunately. But what a fun story this is. It's super funny. It's a lot of fun. I mean, maybe it's just, again, the nostalgia thing. But it's one of those things, too, where it was like, you know, since it was an oversized format, they really tried to go all out with some of these splash pages. I don't know if Bernie draws the Watcher exactly how I would like him to. But other than that. And, yeah, it's pretty goofy. But it's fun. And it's, you know, when Starlin tries to be funny, he's a lot better at it than, you know, some of these old timers. I'll tell you that much for free. And that's what I read last week, everybody. Where's the sign? Ba-da-ba. Oh, here it is. Oh, sorry. All right. That's it for this week. I got a ton of things to do. Can you please start the car? All right. We'll see you guys next week. Da-da-da-da-ba-da-da. I said start the car.